You're not the last of the old Jedi, Luke. You're the first of the new. Earlier this month, I finished Heir to the Empire, the first book in the Thrawn trilogy by Timothy Zahn, and this is my first ever Star Wars novel. For those of you who don't know, I actually like Star Wars quite a bit. I grew up watching the movies, probably like most people my age. But, silly me, I actually watched them completely in the incorrect order. I watched the prequels first and then the originals. And despite that, I still fell in love with Star Wars. Star Wars was a huge part of my childhood. Probably like every older Gen Z member. I'm 26. The prequels were coming out when I was like a very small child. I'm pretty sure, like everyone my age became obsessed with Star Wars. And anyways, my point is, I'm a big Star Wars fan. I've consumed a lot of Star Wars content in my life. I've seen all the movies. I've watched, I think, every TV show that Star Wars has put out. I've read several comics. And I finally decided I should finally read a Star Wars novel because, I love Star Wars. I do. I won't say it's my favorite thing in the world. I'm not like someone who could name all the Jedi or could tell you about the Old Republic or anything like that. But I enjoy Star Wars. I would say I'm a Star Wars fan. And I finally wanted to read a book. And unfortunately, for me at least, this did not work. I came into this with a really high expectations because from what I have been told, Heir to the Empire and the Thrawn trilogy in general are some of the best Star Wars books out there. And that just genuinely was not that's not my opinion on it. I think that this book is pretty okay. It's really nothing home to write about. And maybe it's just because, I'm not a big enough Star Wars fan. I don't appreciate Star Wars enough. Or maybe it's because, the bar for Star Wars books is super low for Star Wars fans. So when they read, a decent one, they're like, oh, this is incredible. But, for me, this is mid. Unfortunately. I hate to say that. I really do. But, I did not really enjoy this very much. I thought it was perfectly fine, and honestly, I have no interest in reading the next one. You will not see a review of the second book in this series because I don't want to read it. It's not to say that this is all bad, but for me, it's just not very interesting. And maybe that's my own bias. I read a lot of fantasy. I read a lot of very good fantasy, in my opinion. I've read some of the best the genre has to offer. I've read Wheel of Time. I've read A Song of Ice and Fire. I've read, Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. I've read The Dark Tower. I've read some of the best fantasy and fiction authors the 20th and 21st century have to offer. So going into this, I don't know. I was hoping that it would maybe hit that level or get close to it, and it just doesn't. And I just feel maybe, again, I just don't appreciate Star Wars enough, but I feel like this didn't really add a whole lot to the Star Wars that I know. Again, just my personal opinion, but there's nothing here that really sticks out to me besides the fact that the premise is more interesting than what we got with the sequels. The sequels, garbage. I just want to say that immediately. They're garbage. Garbage films, except for The Last Jedi, which I think is quite good. But, controversial opinion aside, this just doesn't work for me. The best thing I can say about it is that it's Star Wars, that it has cool, interesting world building, like anything in Star Wars, and that deserves to be explored. Everything else, though, just falls flat. The action doesn't really work. And this might be my really hot take for this review, but I just feel like Star Wars, half the appeal is the visuals. Half the thing that makes Star Wars work is seeing somebody twirl a lightsaber around, or use the Force, or use a blaster, or have a TIE fighter fighting an X-Wing or a Y-Wing or whatever in space. Half the appeal of being a Star Wars fan is seeing that and getting to experience another world. And sometimes, no matter how good it is, no matter how good the narrator is or how good the word is, you just can't get that with a book sometimes. Sometimes I do think movies can excel over books, because they rely on visual storytelling that a book simply cannot replicate. It's why I think horror movies in general are better than horror books, because horror books are good. They're interesting. I'm obviously a huge fan of them, but like half the appeal of a horror movie is being just scared because of what you're watching, what you're consuming with your eyeballs. When I'm reading on the page, I can just shut it. When I'm watching a movie, I can't shut it off. I shouldn't shut it off. And I think it's kind of the same feeling with Star Wars, where it's like when they're talking about, oh, like Luke using the Force to like pull down a thing. Yeah, I can visualize that in my head, but the way you're describing it just isn't as interesting as actually physically watching that happening. Watching him slice somebody in half with a lightsaber, it's cool to read, but it's cooler to see. And maybe it's just the author, maybe Timothy Zahn, no disrespect to him, isn't the best at actually writing scenes in Star Wars that would be provocative, that would be interesting to read. But I don't know, there's not a lot here that I was like, oh, this is cool, this is interesting. I do think, like, Thrawn as a character is very interesting. I wish that we had maybe gotten this as a sequel series instead of the sequels we got as movies, because I think there is a lot of interesting ideas here, but like the characters feel kind of flat. I don't feel like we got to explore Leia or Han or Chewbacca or Luke in any interesting or meaningful way. The introduction of Mara Jade, like, who cares? I know that's Luke Skywalker's wife. I'm enough of a Star Wars fan to know that's his wife in the non-canon stuff is. But, like, I don't care about her. She's not that interesting of a character, I'm sorry to say. I know that she works on behalf of certain figures in this, because it was revealed to me in this book. But, like, her anger towards Luke just doesn't feel real to me. It feels completely forced. It feels like it's setting up this entire narrative for her to be like, actually, I was wrong about this Luke Skywalker guy. And it just doesn't feel real. The relationship between Han and Leia doesn't feel as authentic as it does in the movie. And again, maybe that's just because, Carrie and like all of them were good actors or whatever, but like I'm just not convinced. I'm not convinced by anything I'm reading here. And the world building, like, we're going to planets, well, like, they don't really visit in the movies. Like, we go to Chewbacca's homeworld, which, like, I'm familiar with because I've consumed a lot of Star Wars media, but, like, we don't even really get to explore it. Like, yeah, we get an idea of what it looks like, but, like, we don't really get to be immersed in, like, the, I don't know what, the Wookiee, like, world, and, like, I don't know, I don't know, it's just really lacking some substance for me. And I just didn't feel very engaged with it, which was a huge disappointment because I was really looking forward to it. I was really thinking, like, yeah, I'm gonna like this because I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I'm gonna really like this because I'm especially a huge fan of the originals. Like, those are my favorite movies. I think, like, The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, like, those are my favorite movies out of all Star Wars projects. So I was thinking, like, I finally get to reconnect with the characters I fell in love with for Star Wars. And it didn't turn out that way. Like, the writing's not very strong, the action's not very strong, the character work's not very strong, the concepts are cool, the politicking is interesting, the idea of Thrawn and this, like, remnant of the Empire still remaining, and the New Republic trying to, like, smash them out and crush them and destroy them and get rid of them once and for all is very interesting, and it shows, like, oh, the Empire, like, you can't just destroy an empire, like, it doesn't just, like, you don't just blow up the second Death Star and, oh, everything's magically better. I really like that, and I really wish that we had been able to explore some of those ideas with the sequels, but everything else is just fine. It's just fine. I don't know, like, I finished it, and my feeling was, I'll never read that again. I have no interest in the sequel. And as soon as I get a feeling like that, I know it wasn't for me. And maybe, Star Wars fans who have read this book will be like, you're an idiot. You're dumb. But for me, I think it's like a 7 out of 10. Honest to God. I don't think it's very good. And I wish I liked it more, because I really wanted to. But unfortunately, at least for me, was not good.